Royal lineage verification solutions. Because apparently medieval Europe needed luxury sleep experiments instead of DNA tests. Are you tired of fake princesses infiltrating your kingdom? Has your emotionally overwhelmed royal son brought home yet another mysterious woman claiming to be totally legitimate royalty? Do you fear your bloodline could be contaminated by peasants with confidence? Then you need the all-new P-Test Royal Authenticity System. The only scientifically unverified, psychologically destructive, mattress-based monarchy protection program trusted by emotionally unavailable castles across Europe. For centuries, kings and queens faced one terrifying question. How do we know she's actually a princess? Simple. You destroy her spine with furniture. Using our patented 20 mattress ascension technology, the P-Test creates the ultimate royal verification experience. At the base of the bed, one tiny P. At the top, an orthopedic nightmare reaching low orbit. If your guest awakens exhausted, bruised, delirious, and questioning reality, congratulations. She may contain traces of divinity. But wait, there's more. Order now and you'll receive one ceremonial anxiety P, 20 medieval mattresses stuffed with feathers and unresolved trauma, a complimentary passive-aggressive queen, rainstorm sound effects for dramatic royal entrances, and our new delicate femininity starter kit. That's right. With delicate femininity, you too can enjoy fainting gracefully, speaking in whispers, emotionally destroyed by upholstery, and developing supernatural sensitivity to legumes. Still not convinced? Listen to these satisfied customers. I slept terribly and now I'm married to a prince. Anonymous Scandinavian royal. The bruising was excruciating, but the symbolic validation was priceless. Possibly a goddess. I still don't understand why we didn't just ask for identification. Qui confused castle guard. Warning. Royal Lineage Verification Solutions is not responsible for mattress-related injuries, existential crises, pagan awakening rituals, divine revelations, paranoia, or discovering your favorite bedtime story was actually an ancient fertility cult audition. Royal Lineage Verification Solutions. Separating mortals from goddesses since before recorded history. Disclaimer. The following program is intended for educational, historical, mythological, psychological, and existentially uncomfortable purposes only. Any emotional damage caused by discovering your childhood bedtime stories were actually ancient ritual trials tied to divinity, fertility cults, sleep deprivation, aristocratic mockery, Mesopotamian priestesses, or pagan goddess symbolism is entirely your problem, sweetheart. Viewer discretion is advised. Especially if you own decorative throw pillows, sleep number mattresses, or refer to yourself as an empath on social media. Remember, fairy tales were never written to comfort you. They were written to warn you.
The Princess and the Pea. The fairy tale that tested the gods. A Pizzaverse Studios documentary. A Palermo Productions original. Written by Bambi Palermo. Narrated by Vincent DiPrio. A sleepless princess, a single pea, a mountain of mattresses. It sounds ridiculous. Like the kind of story somebody invented after drinking spoiled medieval wine and falling face first into a furniture store. But hidden inside this absurd little fairy tale is one of humanity's oldest ideas, that the chosen are different from ordinary people. More sensitive, more fragile, more divine. Because the Princess and the Pea was never really about a vegetable. It was about proving who was human and who was something else entirely. Today, Darklings, we're going all the way back, through Scandinavian folklore, through ancient Greece, through Mesopotamia itself, to uncover the forgotten meaning buried beneath 20 mattresses and one very suspicious legume. And trust me, by the end of this story, you are never looking at IKEA the same way again. The Sleepless Princess. A sleepless princess, a single pea, a mountain of mattresses. It sounds absurd. A child's bedtime story. But its true meaning is far older and not meant for children at all. Hidden inside this fairy tale is an ancient trial, one that reveals who is merely human and who is something else entirely. Journey with me into centuries of forgotten meaning. Because The Princess and the Pea is older, stranger, and far darker than you think. Welcome back, Darklings. Before we uncover its secrets, let's begin with the most well-known version of the tale. But listen closely, because hidden in this strange little story are echoes of something far more ancient. Once upon a time, there was a prince who longed for a bride. But not just any bride. She must be a true princess. He searched far and wide across kingdoms and seas. He traveled, meeting princesses enough to fill a ballroom. And yet he could never be sure. Were they truly of royal blood or merely pretending? The prince could not tell. And so, with every meeting, he returned home disheartened, afraid he might never find a real princess. Then, one stormy night, as rain lashed at the castle walls, there came a frantic knocking at the door. The old king himself went to open it, and there she stood, a maiden, beautiful but in a pitiful state. Her hair was plastered to her face, her gown soaked through, the water pouring into her shoes and spilling out at the heels. And yet, bedraggled as she was, she declared she was a princess. Well, thought the queen, shrewd and cautious, we shall see about that. She said nothing of her plan. Instead, she went to the bedchamber and stripped the bed bare. At its base, she placed a single pea, then stacked 20 mattresses upon it, and on top of those, 20 feather beds. Upon this mountain of softness, the maiden was invited to sleep. When morning came, they asked her how she had slept. "Oh, dreadfully," she cried. "I scarcely closed my eyes all night. Something hard lay beneath me. I know not what, but it bruised me black and blue." The queen smiled. Only a true princess could possess such sensitivity to feel a single pea through so many layers, and so the prince took her for his bride, certain at last that he had found a real princess. The older story beneath the fairy tale. Hans Christian Andersen never claimed this story was his invention. He said it was older, much older, and when we go looking for its roots, the trail leads us somewhere very strange indeed. Andersen published the story of The Princess and the Pea in 1835, but he always insisted he had not invented it. He swore it was an old oral tale told to him in childhood in Denmark. And yet, when scholars look for earlier versions, the trail grows cold. Strangely, there are no earlier published versions of the tale. So what was Andersen remembering? Scholars have proposed that Andersen's version may descend from a Swedish folk tale. It tells of a young woman who pretends to be a princess, but is aided by a clever cat or dog. The queen hides peas, beans, or straw under the bed, intending to expose the girl's lie. But the animal overhears the plan and warns her in advance. Each morning, she dutifully complains of her restless night and convinces the royals she is genuine. This version, a variant of Puss in Boots, shows us something crucial, that the pea test already existed in Scandinavian folklore before Andersen. But in that version, the test could be cheated. The girl passes not through sensitivity but through trickery. Yet the pea keeps returning in folklore, always revealing the truth in the strangest of ways. The pea that reveals truth. In The 12 Huntsmen, recorded by the Brothers Grimm, a king is about to marry his betrothed, but his true love disguises herself and 11 maidens as huntsmen so she may enter the palace and win him back. The king's advisor, a rather sarcastic lion in this case, begins to suspect they are not really men. So he urges the king to set a secret trial. Peas are scattered across the floor of the hall. Men tread firmly, the lion reasons, and the peas will be crushed. But women walk delicately, and the peas will roll beneath their feet, tripping and betraying them. Yet a kind servant warns the women in advance, and when the time comes, they stomp heavily, and the test fails. Even here, though, the symbolism remains. The pea is not food, but a revealer of truth. The tiny seed that unmasks who someone really is. To us, the image is absurd because we picture our tender garden peas, soft and green. But those only appeared in the 17th century. Before that, people ate field peas, hard, starchy pellets roasted like chestnuts and stored through the long winter months. Archaeologists have found charred peas in Neolithic sites 10,000 years old. They were among humanity's very first cultivated crops. In Chinese legend, the pea was discovered by Shen Nong, the divine farmer, 5,000 years ago. In Norse myth, Thor flung peas into wells in anger, a punishment upon humanity. And across Europe, peas carried mystical associations. People scattered them to identify witches or evil spirits who were compelled to stop and count every seed. Small, ordinary, and yet capable of revealing hidden truth. The secret trials of kings and gods. Look closely and you'll see a pattern emerging. In myths and legends, hidden tests reveal who someone really is. Arthur draws the sword from the stone, proving he is king. Cinderella slips her foot into the glass slipper, proving she is the true bride. Penelope tests Odysseus with the secret of their marriage bed, and only her real husband can answer. The pea test belongs to this family. It is a secret trial, an impossible challenge, and the outcome unmasks the impostor and reveals the chosen. And stranger still, the motif appears far from Europe, nearly 1,000 years earlier. Travel east, and we find a tale recorded around 1070 in a vast Sanskrit text known as the Ocean of Rivers of Stories, a sprawling collection of legends. In it, 3 upper-class brothers compete to prove who is the most impossibly fastidious. One insists he is particular about food, another about women, and the third about his bed. So delicate was he that when a single hair was slipped beneath his mattress, he awoke covered in bruises. Here, nearly 1,000 years before Andersen, we meet the same strange motif, an absurdly small object beneath bedding, causing unbearable discomfort, revealing a figure of extraordinary sensitivity. The Sybarites and the mockery of luxury. And further back still, in the world of ancient Greece, we meet the Sybarites, a people notorious for their decadence. They lived in the wealthy Greek colony of Sybaris in southern Italy, a city so rich, so indulgent, that their very name became a byword for luxury. And one story about them sounds eerily familiar. The philosopher Athenaeus recounts how Smindirides of Sybaris once complained that he had slept badly because a single rose petal on his bed was folded in half. Another historian tells it differently. Smindirides claimed the softness of the rose petals had raised blisters on his skin. 2,000 years before Andersen, we hear of a body so fragile, so delicate that petals raise bruises. The ancient writers were, of course, exaggerating. Seneca and Athenaeus told such stories with a mocking tone, turning the Sybarites into a byword for ridiculous indulgence. And curiously, when Andersen published The Princess and the Pea in 1835, many readers thought he too was poking fun at the aristocracy. A satire on nobles so pampered they could not bear the slightest discomfort. Perhaps he was. But if the tale truly came to him from older folklore, then that satirical edge may have been far older than Andersen himself, echoing a tradition of laughing at the delicate elite that stretches back 2,000 years. When fragility meant divinity. But this strange idea that true worth is revealed through exquisite sensitivity has deep roots in myth. The moon goddess Selene was often described as tender, her beauty so easily marred that even a mortal lover's rough touch could endanger her. Poets wrote of her as fragile as moonlight itself, luminous but unable to withstand the weight of the human world. And she is not alone. In Celtic lore, the Sidhe were fairy people, often depicted as goddess-like beings of the otherworld, and were said to be so delicate that coarse fabrics or loud noises could wound them. Even saints and holy virgins in medieval texts are described in almost fairy tale terms of delicacy, sleeping badly if their beds were too rough, fainting at the smallest stimulus, refusing food that was not perfectly prepared. Their frailty was not weakness, but proof of divinity. But then something changed. By the 18th century, that same imagery no longer belonged to gods. It belonged to women. This divine fragility was reimagined into the cultural ideal of femininity. The fainting lady trope was born. Women praised for being delicate, ethereal, fragile. A body that bruised easily, a soul quick to tears. These were no longer marks of godhood, but of refinement. Was Andersen mocking that idea in The Princess and the Pea? Or was he unknowingly preserving something far older? A memory of when such sensitivity was divine? The gods do not sleep. But the deepest root of this story lies not in Scandinavia, nor in Greece, but in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, written nearly 4,000 years ago, the hero seeks immortality. He journeys to meet Utnapishtim, survivor of the Great Flood. Utnapishtim sets him a test. Stay awake for 7 nights and you may become as the gods. Gilgamesh tries, but he fails. Sleep overcomes him. And in that failure, his mortality is revealed. For in the ancient mind, sleep was death's twin. The Greeks called Hypnos the god of sleep, and Thanatos the god of death, brothers. Mortals must sleep because they are fragile, finite, but gods do not sleep. To remain wakeful was to prove you were something more than human. The pattern repeats across cultures. In Greece, initiates of the Eleusinian mysteries kept all night vigils. If you stayed awake, you were ready to see divine truth. In India, sages endured long nights of sleepless meditation, rising above mortal frailty and drawing closer to the divine. In Christianity, Christ asks his disciples to stay awake with him in Gethsemane. They fail, their weakness proving their humanity, while his endurance proves his divinity. In Norse myth, Odin hung upon Yggdrasil for 9 nights, sleepless and pierced by a spear, to win the wisdom of the runes. Across cultures, the same test appears again and again. The chosen one stays awake. The ordinary fail. It is the line between mortal and divine, the bride test of the goddess. And in many of the oldest cultures, these trials fell especially upon young women. In Mesopotamia, priestesses stood in for the goddess Inanna or Ishtar in ritual unions with the king known as the sacred marriage. To be chosen, the woman had to embody purity and ritual perfection. Her very body was seen as a vessel of divinity. And interestingly, much of that purity was proven by lineage. The high priestess was often a royal daughter appointed to the temple from birth or early childhood. Only such a woman could embody the goddess in the sacred marriage, a notion that seems to echo Anderson's search for a real princess. In Babylonian law, women accused of unchastity could be forced to undergo a river ordeal, cast into the water to prove their innocence. If they survived, the gods had proven their truth. Brutal, yes. But it shows how a maiden's purity was something tested by ordeal. In Greece, maidens serving Artemis underwent fasting, sleepless vigils, and ritual dances to prove they were ready for womanhood. Priestesses of Delphi, and later the Vestal Virgins of Rome, were likewise set apart by strict virginity and secret disciplines, tests that marked them as more than mortal. And so we return to Anderson's princess. She fails to sleep through the night. Her sleeplessness is proof not of weakness, but of otherworldly status. Even the towering pile of mattresses is telling. She rises above ordinary mortals, climbing literally into the heavens. Perhaps the pea beneath her bed was never just a vegetable. Perhaps it was the oldest trial of all, the test that divides human from divine. And so Anderson's sleepless princess may not have been merely a bride, but a goddess in disguise. A memory preserved through folklore, a ritual hidden inside a bedtime story, a forgotten trial buried beneath 20 mattresses and one tiny seed. And maybe that's why these stories survive. Because beneath the fantasy, beneath the castles and gowns and happily ever afters, they preserve ancient fears humanity never truly escaped. Who belongs among us? Who is chosen? Who is pretending? And what secret test reveals the truth? The princess and the pea may look harmless, but like so many fairy tales, its roots disappear deep into the oldest parts of the human mind. And somewhere beneath all those mattresses, the ancient world is still awake. If you enjoyed today's descent into mythological insomnia and aristocratic mattress warfare, make sure to like, subscribe, and join the Pizzaverse. Because around here, we don't just retell fairy tales. We dig up the bodies buried underneath them. And trust me, sweetheart, the deeper we go, the weirder this gets. Thank you for watching another Palermo Productions documentary. To everyone supporting the channel, sharing the videos, surviving the algorithm, and willingly allowing me to ruin your childhood one fairy tale at a time. Salute. And maybe check your mattress before you go to sleep. See ya at the next one.
Hello friends, it's me Giacomo at Giacomo A on the YouTube. So anyway, when I am not on the Facebook groups begging for views, subs and people to buy my books, I am here with you, begging with you to buy my books. Because JJ Lambon and Elisa Pizza Piescia, Pizzitola, damaged my books. Bambi Palermo did too. So anyways, buy the books, please. I am begging.
Hello friends. Join me tonight on my YouTube channel at Giacomo A to hear my story about the underworld 80s monsters.
Have you or a loved one accidentally purchased the new 80s Wise Guy? Maybe you walked into a bookstore. Maybe you were online. Maybe you made a series of catastrophic life decisions at 2:37 in the morning. Well, friend, you may be entitled to emotional compensation because introducing Bambi's Book Review Corner, the only review show brave enough to ask, did I just buy literature or did I buy a decorative doorstop? Now, before we continue, this is parody, commentary, and opinion. Please relax, everybody. Nobody call the Department of Hurt Feelings. They're already overloaded. So I sat down, poured myself coffee, opened this thing, and 5 pages in I said, whoa, hang on. Is this a memoir or a guy trying to convince me he was always one room away from something important? Because every chapter got me feeling like this guy knew a guy who maybe stood near another guy once. Madon. By page 20, I needed GPS. Not for directions. For the storyline. And then the stories start piling up. Big stories. Important stories. Stories so dramatic I started looking around my living room like, am I reading a biography or did Netflix accidentally mail me 3 seasons of Confusion? J.J. Lambone. I bought this book expecting insight. 3 chapters later, I was staring out the window questioning every decision I made since middle school. The first signs were subtle, sudden eye-rolling, excessive wait-what reactions, a habit of looking at the ceiling as if the answers might be written there. Then came the warning I failed to respect. I started calling friends just to say, you got to hear this, even though I was not sure what this was supposed to be. By the time I reached the deluxe package, the good kind of confusion had been replaced by existential confusion. Absolutely free. The book did not feel like a finished work so much as a challenge thrown at the reader, daring them to keep going out of curiosity alone. Still, I could not stop. Every page promised clarity and delivered another detour. Every chapter raised a new question and then walked away without answering it. That is when Bambi's official rating became unavoidable. 1 star. And that star was for effort because somebody had to staple the pages together. Bambi's Book Review Corner exists for moments like this, when a reader finishes a book and is left sitting there with the expression of a person trying to remember their own name. This is not a recommendation. It is a public service announcement with ambition. Read responsibly.
How'd that cross necklace get over your horns? You know the saying, I bet you be sweating like a whore in church, spending too much time, try to hide behind the Bible, get in front of it, find out that Jesus was a foreigner. Virgin Mary, you would've deported her. Not before your husband found out she was a minor, he'd have ordered her. Him and his buddies would've recorded her, transported her, extorted her, and then sent her to the coroner. You don't get to pray for me. You won't bless your heart out of this one. I know that your hate runs deep. God is probably tired of getting name dropped by fake Christians. You don't get to pray for me. You won't bless your heart out of this one. I know that your hate runs deep. God is probably tired of getting name dropped by fake Christians. I'm pretty sure that God's annoyed of racists bringing him up. Sick of you chumps showing up to take a sip of the cup. You called the Aztec savages, but the cup, isn't it blood? Isn't the stuff symbolic? Oh, it's different, huh? Introduction to blood sacrifice. He died so you can commit your crimes. Here's the hoping he come back to life. I can't wait to see the face on every single preacher's wife. All them secrets you've been keeping, tell me how you sleep at night. All them evil things you feeling, don't leave cause you be polite. Cause this even and the thieving ain't concealed as recondite. Only a few people know. And you know why they keep it tight. You don't get to pray for me. You won't bless your heart out of this one. I know that your hate runs deep. God is probably tired of getting name dropped by fake Christians. You don't get to pray for me. You won't bless your heart out of this one. I know that your hate runs deep. God is probably tired of getting name dropped by fake Christians. Weaponized all of it, don't know what a proverb is. Cherry picking Bible scripts, oh my God. Arrogance, lying in the Lord names ain't honoring. Pride leading the blind again, oh my God. You must be drunk off the blood of Christ. Or maybe you just back hitting the hooch again. Or back to cosplaying a hooligan. The grip, the cross, to get the dollars like what? Now you forgot where you in your hoochie been? You don't get to pray for me. You won't bless your heart out of this one. I know that your hate runs deep. God is probably tired of getting name dropped by fake Christians. You don't get to pray for me. You won't bless your heart out of this one. I know that your hate runs deep. God is probably tired of getting name dropped by fake Christians.